Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of Outside the Panels. As promised on the last Flipside Focus, which aired last week, I am here with one of my new favorite writers to talk about my new favorite book, Tony Fleece of Stray Dogs fans. I have to say, I absolutely love Stray Dogs. I went out and bought it. Look at that! I bought it, all the issues. I have
in person. I love it.
Yeah, it's. Thank you first of all. Thank you so much for taking some time out to do this, because I have been a fan of the book since. Well, I'm going to be honest. Since issue 2, I was behind the curve on this. That's one. Fair. I see a lot of books to review for Comic Crusaders. Got issue number 2. Was hooked immediately. Straight down my local comic book shop. Put it on order. So
nice.
There you go. So I have the actual copies. There you go. Check them out. That one's upside down. That's how organized I am. There you go. I haven't been down yet.
These are expensive now.
Yeah, tell me about it. So, Tony Fleece, thank you very much for taking time. Tell us how did you break into comics? Because dog horror Disney tropes aren't normally your thing, are they?
No, yeah. I mean, cartoons is definitely normally my thing. I've been drawing My Little Pony for since 2012, so almost 9 years now, more than 8 years. And that was pretty much my main job. That's what, if people knew me in comics, that's what they knew me from. Mm-hmm. I did some creator-owned stuff before. My very first book was a creator-owned book that came out through a real small press publisher. It was called In My Lifetime, and it was an autobiographical thing. Okay. And then I did a book at Oni in 2015, 2016 called Jeff Steinberg, Champion of Earth, with Josh Fialkov, who's a buddy of mine. But I've mostly just been doing licensed comics. You know, I draw ponies, I draw Star Wars and Rick and Morty. And so this is my first, like I've written some My Little Pony stuff, but this is the first writing that people have seen from me in many years. Yeah.
So when you say licensed stuff, because a lot of people, a lot of comic book fans sometimes turn the nose up. It's like, oh, it's a licensed book, and they don't realize that like the big characters like Bats and Superman and Wonder Woman and Spider-Man and Captain America, all that, they're pretty much licensed books. Yeah. In everything but name only, right?
Right. Yeah. They're owned by a corporation. They just happen to have a publisher that doesn't have to pay a licensing fee. Although I wonder if they do anymore. I don't know how it works. But yeah, the books that I work for, generally, they pay somebody else to make the books. So Lucasfilm or Hasbro or whatever.
Yeah. So tie-in licensed books have been around since God knows when. You had ROM back in the 70s, and you've had Micronauts, and you had
Donald
Star
Duck,
Wars. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's going back some time, that one.
Yeah, of course.
So do you feel that animation is kind of your forte, and you kind of fell into comics, or have you always been like a comic guy? And
my natural drawing style is real cartoony, and so it works out that there's a whole bunch of work doing that, and sort of more and more, drawing the way I draw, there's a lot of work for that. And so that's just worked out well for me. And I definitely understand the sort of like sort of being put in a category or like a corner, like this is those kind of comics, kids comics or whatever, because I guess if I didn't work on them, I probably would think about them similarly. But, from working in that field and in those comics for so long, you sort of understand like what their deal is and what they're there for. So like I meet all kinds of people that are like, oh, my kids learned to read from those comics, or this is what got me into comics and stuff like that. So it's not like the main, mainstream comics, but it definitely has a place. And also I've got to sit there and do my, over 1,000 pages, I just sit there and sort of put in work and figure out storytelling. When I started on My Little Pony, I'd done a few comics, but now I've done, over 50 issues. It's just storytelling, just going in and trying things, or just figuring out, what works and what doesn't work. And a lot of that stuff that I picked up there, I can put into my other stuff. A lot of that just came right through the Stray Dogs.
All right, cool. So, My Little Pony, I'm going to be honest, I've never read a single My Little Pony book in my life. But I do know that there's it is huge. There's a whole community. Bronies, is that what they're called? Yeah.
That's what they're called, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was sort of a surprise to me, but also super cool because, having done independent comics and like small stuff before that, it was just like all of a sudden to a certain group of people, it's like you draw Batman or something like that. All of a sudden I draw the one thing they like most in the world. And so for that whole 8 years that I've been doing it, there's a whole other world of like just pony conventions or just pony fans and stuff where, I make a great living at it just because there's this super dedicated fan base that is always there to pick up.
It's so here's a quick question then. Did you worry about alienating the kind of My Little Pony fans with Stray Dogs? And the way I'm kind of thinking about this, I remember back in the day when Tom Cruise did Interview with a Vampire.
Yeah.
And loads of Tom Cruise fans went to the movie expecting it to be all Top Gun and A Few Good Men, and of course it's not. It's all blue and gore and all this, and people ran out like, "Oh my god!" So we worried about the kind of alienation element there.
No, not really. For me, my version of that, I went and saw Spring Breakers, and there were tons of people in the theater that I could tell were just Disney Channel fans, and they're just like, "Oh, Selena Gomez," and they got up and left immediately. This is not what we're here for. No, I wasn't really worried about alienating them. I was more just curious if some of them would come along. I knew the majority of them, it was not their. I mean, it looks like cute animals, so there's that. But they're into the friendship and the magic, and there's friendship in our book, but there's no magic, and there's a lot of horror and terror and stuff.
So all 5 issues of Stray Dogs are out in the shops now. So we're going to talk about the book. I am wary. I do not want to give any secrets away about the book. What I want people to do is go have a look, find the thing, read it, because that's what we're here for. We're not, so no spoilers. All right. So if you want to find out who done what, you're gonna have to check somewhere else for that, I'm afraid. All right. So let's get into it.
Let's say slight spoilers, because otherwise it's just impossible to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I'm not naming names. I'm not naming names. That's my line. I'm not naming names. Well,
we'll say spoilers for issue 1. How's that?
Yeah. Okay. Fine. All right. Okay. So, how did you come up with the story then? What was the sort of like the germ that kind of like went? Oh, yeah. Why don't we cross Disney with the movie 7 and see what happens?
So I was watching a TV show. It was the Bates Motel, the Norman Bates show.
Right. Yeah. I've seen that.
And I got up to leave the room, and when I left, Norman Bates did not have a puppy. And when I came back, he did have a puppy. And I was like, where did this puppy come from? All of a sudden I was just real curious about, did he kill somebody? Did he take their puppy? That was the first thing I thought of. And my friends were like, no, he didn't kill anybody. He just found this puppy. But then I was already off in this other direction. I was just like, it's a cool idea if somebody kills somebody and takes their puppies. And it's sort of like takes dogs as trophies. That's sort of what I first started thinking about.
Yeah, like a Sinator type effect.
Yeah. But then I started tumbling around in my head all right, well then how do you tell that story? You tell the story from the cop's perspective, they're looking for lost dogs, or from the killer's perspective, like a Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, where he's taking that. That seemed awful. But then because I'd worked in funny animal comics for so long, it seemed very natural to just go well, what if it's from the perspective of the dogs? Then that's different, and that's a story you want to see, and that's something you haven't really seen before. So that's how it came together pretty quickly. Over the course of a couple hours, I had the idea, and I sort of had a few big moments. I knew what happened at the very end, and I knew some of the stuff that happened in the middle. I had a lot of. I had the first issue pretty well figured out, like bare bones. So it came together pretty quickly in my mind. And then from there, I just went and hammered on story and outline for a long time and sort of just try and nail it all together as best I could.
So this is issue 1 that we're having a look at. And who's this little character?
This is Sophie. That's the main character in the book.
Yeah, Sophie,
Sophie's a good girl. She's scared. She's nervous about things.
Yeah.
And she goes to a new house. And she's at the vet, and the vet tells her lady that dog memories aren't super great, so she doesn't have to worry about, Sophie being worried about going to vet all the time. She probably doesn't even remember.
Yeah.
So then she shows up at this new house. Yeah, mine too. Mine gets excited if we're just going in the car. He loves it.
Cool.
But yeah, she goes to this new house, and it's full of all these dogs, and she doesn't quite know how she got there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a story of them sort of figuring out. First, she figures out that their master killed her lady, and then she has to try and convince all the rest of them.
Yeah, and that's the main crux, isn't it? It's that kind of Sophie has this belief, this inherent belief that something's gone wrong, and all the other dogs are kind of like, yeah, we're all right, we're just chilling, we're doing our thing, and she befriends Rusty, right?
Yeah,
Rusty's like the Steve McQueen of the dogs.
Yeah, I describe him as the Billy Joel because Billy Joel played that character in Oliver and Company. He was a cool dog.
I've got to give a quick shout out there because I was so impressed with this book. Both my wife has read it, and one of my colleagues in my day job, Jolie, has read it, and she
took it out to the real world.
Oh, I did. Honestly, yeah. This is what I do. If I find a comic that I think transcends the idea that people think superheroes are comics and that's it, well, then if I see something that makes me emote, I'm going to share it with people. And Jolie had mentioned that she'd liked horror and she liked Disney, so I kind of said, "Oh, I've got a book for you. I know exactly what you'd like." And I brought her the books, and she read them after I gave her grief for not reading them the first time. Shame on you, Jolie. And then I was talking about the Disney aspect. She goes, "Oh no, it's Oliver and Company." I was like, "What? Why?" So Jolie, I can't believe I'm going to have to say this, but Jolie, you were right. I was wrong. There you go.
Yeah.
Don't say that. Don't say it often at work, but there you go.
We're working on a thing right now. A buddy of mine painted the original poster for Oliver and Company, and we hired him to do like an incentive cover for down the line. Like it feels real full circle. Going to have the actual get the guy to do it. I'm psyched about it.
Yeah, cool, excellent. Is the Seven vibe? Is that the true influence? I mean, you talked about Bates Motel being the kind of like the rabbit hole by which you drop down, but I mean, a lot of other people have mentioned Seven as the kind of like a resonance in there. Is that a fair assessment to make, or
I don't think it's specifically any one serial killer movie. Like it was just sort of like a collection of all the serial killer stuff and true crime, and sort of like, I mean, there's the master has like dress forms in his house, and he collects like the clothing from people and stuff. So there's some like Silence of the Lambs in that, but I just tried to sort of make like the only way that you know what he does, the master, is through what the dogs know. Like the important thing about our story is that it's told completely from the dog's point of view. So we don't know anything that they don't know. Yeah. And that was sort of nice for writing a serial killer, because I didn't have to put my head in this place of like, what's his torture? How does he torture people? Like what's his whole thing? I could just go like, this is what the dogs see, and this is how they're able to piece it together. But I never thought that he was like, as you can see in the story, like when you see him, he's not as tortured as like Kevin Spacey in Seven, or like a James Gumb. Like he looks like he operates in the worlds, sort of like a Ted Bundy did.
There's elements of a strangeness in there, I think, but overall he comes across like a normal Joe. He's like the guy at your job that you're just like, that guy's weird, Yeah. If the guys at work are listening to this, that weird guy's not me. Just saying. Okay.
They know who it is.
Yeah. It's the one who thinks he's not weird. All right. Okay. Do you have a favorite dog?
Oh man, I really like Imogene a lot.
Let
I just like the design of her. I like how huge she is. She's
Yeah.
hardly ever in the book because she just stays in one corner all the time.
She makes an impact. No spoilers,
Sure,
but
yeah, for sure.
She makes an impact.
I really like Other Henry's based on my ex's dog, and so I'm like very attached to that dog anyway. You know,
Okay.
and I love that he's just like a stupid idiot goofball. You know, because that's sort of how that dog was anyway. I love them all. Like I love Earl, and I didn't love Earl when I was writing him most of the time, but you know, having gone on a journey with him and sort of like getting to really like zero in on what his deal is.
Yeah.
I love all of them.
I mean, that leads into a really interesting question. You've obviously spent time working with these characters. You know, writing a comic book, it's not just a kind of wham bam, there you go, it's done. It takes time to flesh these characters out. How do you feel then? Minor spoiler alert here. Not all the dogs make it out alive. Sorry. How do you feel when something bad has to happen to one of them? Because I mean, I'll give you. I'm not going into specifics, so I'm not going to spoil it. But if I did not cry at the issue, I must have cried at every single issue with this book, especially the end one. The fifth issue, I was like, I just couldn't. I wasn't going to review the fifth issue because it's in my pull list to buy at the comic book shop. And I was like, I'm not going to review a comic that I'm going to have to buy. That's just pointless. I'm not going to get the joy of reading it for the first time. But when I saw it,
sit there a week early.
Yeah, and then it was there to review, and I couldn't resist it. I had to find out what happened, and I went dove straight in. Halfway through the book, I've got tears. Then I've got tears for another reason. Then I'm smart. I've got tears. Man, that's me reading the book. How do you feel writing it? You know, that's some stuff.
Thank you. Well, let me ask you this: in the preview copies that you got, were the two-page spreads, or were they one page after the other?
They were 2 pages.
Okay, so it was like you'd see half of it, and then you see the other half.
I have a really, really cool program that if it's a double spread, the screen.
Oh, it doesn't spread. Okay, good.
So that works.
Yeah, because I was looking at the preview you had there, and I was just like, oh no, is that how he saw it? That sucks.
No.
Issue 5 is like built around the idea of like just big splash pages and 2-page spreads, just like Like,
it's like Superman 75.
Yes.
For the geeks who don't know what I'm talking about, Superman 75 is the battle of the Doomsday, and as the battle reaches its crescendo, the panels got bigger from like quarter panels to half pages to like big page to the splash page. You know, the one with the pole and the cape blowing in the wind and Lois Craven. Yeah, cool.
No, well, so like I said before, I had the skeleton of the story pretty early on. And so that meant some of these dogs, when we were creating them, I already knew what their fate was. You know, like I just had like, this happens and this happens. I sort of, because I'm confident as like a person that writes jokes or dialogue, but I haven't done a lot of, like Stray Dogs #2, besides from co-writing, Stray Dogs #2 is the first issue 2 that I ever wrote. You know, like everything else is just one issue things. So I worked very hard on the plotting of it, and that was what was most important to get right. And I'm really proud of it because I feel like I got it right. But it took the most time. But so that means like I knew that I could make them characters, and I knew that I could make people care about them and stuff. And also I knew that Trish Forstner, the artist, was going to draw them so beautifully that like even if I wrote them horribly, you would care about them just because they look so. They just look so like sweet, innocent, cute.
They do. Yeah.
But so yeah, early on in the outlines, it was just like this dog meets its untimely end, you know, and then and later on this dog, you know. So that was sort of like working backwards. Then it was like, I know this happens, so how do we make it so that hits as hard as possible?
So how do you then? Because I mean, that's a different problem then, isn't it? Because now you know what the conclusion for a character arc is.
Yeah.
How do you get to care about them if you already know the ending? That's a different skill, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. I mean,
so put it like this. I mean, put
ahead.
it another way. You're an artist, right? So if you're, I like to doodle. I tell everybody this, I doodle. But once I've done, I have this great idea. I'll do Spider-Man swinging in a city. So once I've done my Spider-Man bit, I can't be bothered drawing a city. Go ahead, go away. It's all straight lines. I don't want any of that. I just want to do a Spider-Man picture. You know, so all my good intentions goes. You know, so is it the same when you know what the conclusion of a character arc is?
No, because the thing that we're working towards isn't the thing we're working towards is like the finished whole story. You know, like that's the whole. Right. When we set out to do a thing, the thing we set out to do is like these 5 issues, you know, and then hopefully people read them, you know. So that's what we're going for. So every page we did, and every like as it progressed along, we will continue to be propelled by the idea that like I can't wait for people to see this.
Cool, excellent. And it's funny you mentioned about the issue 2 because you know issue 2 I think probably has the most humor in it. You know, it has like the fart joke. That I kind of double taked. I was like, "What? What's that?" And it's funny. It hit the spot where it's supposed to. So that was good. And I think sometimes when I read so many comics, especially nowadays, storylines get elongated to fit like the trade paperback format.
Yeah.
I personally think, and this is just, and I mean this as a compliment, so please take it as such. The way I've read this book is that issue 1 is one bookend. 2 through 4 is the story, and 5 is the other bookend, and that's kind of how it feels. Now, normally you'd see for 5 issues, you get like 2 issues start, the transferal issue in number 3, then like the final 2 issues be in the kind of like the final arc. That's kind of how 5 issues would work. But for me, the paradigm was totally shifted. It was like bookend, story, bookend. Is that? Am I wrong? Is that kind of?
No, not really. I mean, the way I thought about it, at least, was I need the first 3 issues, basically, I need to get people to trust us.
Definitely.
You know? Because at the end of 3, if you don't trust us, you're not coming back, right? And then I also knew that 4 was where I had to do all the damage. Like, when I was outlining it, 4 is like, this is our horror movie. This is where everything gets real. Shit gets real moment, you know? And also I knew that like if they didn't trust us already at that point, they're not coming back. And I knew that 5 was just all resolution. And from the beginning of like laying out and planning the thing, it's the action issue, it's the chase issue. So by that point, I needed people to be all the way on board. So issues 1 and 2 are a lot of like meeting the characters and having them be cute and interacting with them. And there's scares and stuff in there. And like, obviously there's a big twist in issue 1 where you find out that, you know, that this guy killed her lady, or at least that's what she says. But both of those first 2 were just sort of like set up almost, you know?
Yeah.
Second issue, we set up the master. Like we tell you a little more about that. And if at the end of first issue, we're like, maybe they're going to do a zig when we think they're going to zag, and they're going to say like, no, he's just a nice guy. This dog's crazy, you know? I feel like all the way up until 4, there were people going like, yeah, I mean, you're going to find out that she's wrong about that. I feel like people are looking for another big twist. Issues 1 and 2, meet the dogs, meet everybody, introductions. 3, scares, and then we start to break your heart. And then 4 and 5 are just when it just starts to really, you know, like if you weren't set up for it, like if somebody just read issue 4 first, they would just be like, this is horrifying. I'm not, you know, like I can't handle this, I would think. Totally. But what's weird is we were positive people were going to drop off after 3. Like that's where we'll lose people.
No.
But it actually, that's where it ticked up, you know, like that's where we started.
Definitely.
So
definitely.
We did not expect that at all.
No, the pace of the book's brilliant. I actually, you know, the time you take to get to know the characters is what sells the horror and the emotional aspect. If this was just like, he's a dog, something bad happens. I mean, dogs are cute, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's like, and, you know, so you've managed to sort of like, I don't know, transcend cynic comic book reader.
Right.
Well, I've been reading comics for God knows how long, been writing reviews for, again, God knows how long, and you've managed to kind of like get in there and twist it around and bring out a book, which, for me, if I get a vote on any sort of polls this year, this is my mini-series of the year by far. So,
thank you so much.
So it's cool. Right, we're going to take a quick... Sorry?
Oh, go ahead. No, I was going to say, I work real hard on the outline, like I said, and I always use two. Whenever I start a new project, I pull out two things. There's Peter David's Writing for Comics book has this very childlike and cartoony 3-act structure thing.
I have that book.
Yeah, you know that thing, like it looks like a graph.
Yeah.
And he does it with This Man, This Monster, and he sort of like plots the points of that story. I always look at that and I sort of think about that in terms of my story. And then there's this great article online. I can't remember who wrote it, but they broke down Aaron Brockovich into the structure, but did it by percentages instead of acts. So basically, it's like by 10% into your thing, this should happen. By 20% in this should happen. And that was very applicable to comics because you could go, all right, 5 issues, so by 20 pages in, this should happen. Or whatever.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Yeah, I was very fastidious about that shit.
When does that? I mean, because this is a 5-issue mini, it's Image, so it's going to get trade paperbacked at some point.
Yeah.
When you're writing and you've got your 5-issue plan in your head, do you worry about the trade? Because I mean, the good thing about reading floppies, I'm a floppy guy. I shouldn't really brag about that. I won't get a lot of fan mail.
We're getting older.
Yeah, I'm married, so something works. So the structure of the single issue comic is 22 and done. There's your cliffhanger. Move on to the next. In a trade paperback, that can be repetitive for some people. So do you, when you write and you think, I'm going to make this a 5-issue or a 6-issue or whatever, do you worry about the trade paperback implication? Or just think, this is my story and I'm going with it?
Yeah, I didn't worry about it in that way. That's the first time I've ever even considered that. I'm just like, oh no, are people going to get annoyed with the cliffhangers? But I think it's only, there's only 4 cliffhangers.
It's not the cliffhanger per se, it's the following recap that has to come with it.
Oh yeah, no. I wasn't trying to do too much of that. I guess in that way I was thinking about it as like a collection. But I was also thinking of the book as a complete object. And so I knew we were going to do previously ons. I knew we were going to do a page that just had all the characters and all their names. So that like when somebody starts a book, they can quickly refresh, like, okay, that's what Earl looks like. That's Victor, like all these dogs. So that was sort of freeing because, and that's been going on since like, 2000, whatever, like Bill Jemisek and Marvel comics.
Yeah, I was going to say Marvel do that. Marvel must love it because they lose a page of advertising space to do that.
Yeah. But it's great because you don't have to have everybody call each other by their first name. It's not like, hey, Henry, come over here. Hey, Victor. That doesn't sound real. So it made it a lot easier to write a realistic sounding dialogue without having to like always go like, well, we don't have good memories. Don't forget.
Right. Okay. We're going to take a break. Hopefully remember where we left off. Because we're talking Stray Dogs and it's an Image book, we're going to run the Flipside Focus advert. Flipside Focus is our, he says, looking for the advert. Do I have the Flipside Focus? Crisis in Thailand. I don't have the Flipside Focus. The audio guy, I'm going to have a word with you.
We'll do it live.
All right, so here we go. Yeah. I'll tell you what. Check out my faves. Here we go.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
There you go. Check out the Old Timers Show where they talk about comics from at least no earlier than 25 years ago. There you go. So it's like old stuff. For the Flipside Focus fans, yes, we're still doing Flipside. Yes, it's still massive. And don't forget the 31st of July, check out your Twitter feed because that is Buy Indie Comic Day. All right. So go check that out. Go and pick up an indie book. Go and buy Stray Dogs. or My Little Pony. And if you buy a Star Wars
That's
book,
not
yeah, don't buy the Marvel one. Buy the
I mean,
IDW one. Yeah, cool.
I mean, I like that Darth Vader a lot. Dr. Aphra, I'm okay with sometimes.
Yeah, I quite like. So my favorite era of Star Wars comics is the old Marvel stuff between Empire and Jedi, because I thought they learned the lesson from trying to do Star Trek between movies.
Yeah.
You know, so they turned around and were like, you know what, we're never going to find Han Solo, so we're going to stop looking for him. We're going to do all this other stuff instead, and it was great. You know, I mean, David Michelini, Ron Friend's art and stuff. It was tip top. I'm quite liking the Bounty Hunters storyline that's going on right now, but
I hate a crossover, so I have all of it, and I'll read it sometime within the next year, and then I'll get caught up on everything again. I'm on that and Avengers and X-Men. I'm back on X of Swords, so I just
where are you on Avengers?
I'm screwed.
Are you reading Heroes Reborn right now?
Avengers, I have all of Heroes Reborn, but I'm back. I just finished the Age of Khonshu, so I'm at the Phoenix.
Good luck.
Jason's my guy. Like, I love Jason Aaron's work a lot. He's one of the people that, like, when I think about how I want to write something, I think about like how he would do it. Him and Brian Bendis and Brian K. Vaughan especially.
So I mean, that brings up another good question. I have notes. Trust me, I have notes. How does it feel then? Because I mean, on the back of each comic, you get these lovely quotes by Brian Michael Bendis. You've got Jason Aaron, Scott Snyder, Kieran Gillen, Kyle Higgins. These are like the top-notch current creators that are kicking around the world. How does that make you feel when you see, like, those people? I mean, Scott Snyder was great on horror when he was on Detective. Black Mirror was fantastic.
Yeah. American Vampire.
Yeah, great. Might have gone a little bit mainstream with Batman and Justice League, but we're not going to hold that against him. But
I mean, he's still a horror guy in his heart. I feel like he's doing more American Vampire right now, right?
Good, yes. Was it 1976? Is that the run? Or
yeah.
No,
that was the last one. I don't know. I can't keep up. Which is, but him in particular, I had no connection to. I didn't know him. He just, when the book was coming out, he read it, or he might have messaged me and said, like, hey, can you send me a PDF of this? And then he just really liked it. That was, that's a real crazy thing. Like, Brian Michael Bendis, I sent an email to because I used to be on his message board, and I knew that he still had that same. He has this AOL address that has been his address for all
AOL.
of comics. It's like Brian Bendis.
Don't say it because people are just going to bombard him with stuff now.
No, it's in the back of powers. It's like 1138. Just like the dorkiest email address you could have.
1138.
But I just emailed him cold and because Image said, hey, can you get us some quotes for this thing? And he was always my favorite. And so I said, well, I mean, I guess I should start there. Like, I feel like if he read it, I think this is the sort of thing he'd like. So, and he was very nice about it and sent me an email back like the next day. Like it was crazy. Like I never met Kieran Gillen. He's same deal, just like tweeted at me that quote and said it was great. I never expected we never expected anybody to read the thing, let alone like the people that we respect and stuff like that. Once Image picked up the book, we knew that there would probably be some people saw it, but we never expected it to be like a successful or a hit or anything.
Well, I've been lucky enough. I've interviewed Scott Snyder a couple of times, and I've interviewed Kieran Gillen on one of our Comic Cons. So both guys. Scott Snyder is he has got to be one of the nicest guys in comic books. He is absolutely awesome. His heart's bang on the right place. Lots of time for daft questions, and you know what? It was such a pleasure speaking to him.
And he's friends with a lot of guys that I know, and also he always, like, the way he was a booster for my book, he's done for a lot of other books too, and I think that's a cool move. Like when you have power in comics to be able to shine a light down and say, like, don't miss this thing that you probably didn't hear about.
Definitely.
I mean, that's a super cool move.
And that's one of the things we love about working on Comic Crusaders is the fact that we're going to review the Marvel books and we're going to review the DC books, but you'll find that the majority of the reviews that go live on New Comic Book Day are indie books.
Right.
Because we love indie books. We love the idea. We love the freeness of the ideas, the different types of stories you can tell. You know, are some of them tie-ins? Yeah. I mean, I just read the Buffy Vampire Slayer Tea Time book by Mirka Andolfo and Say It Home, and that's fantastic. That is just like grin for grin, one of a really good book. And
is that this week?
Yep, that's this week. It's out. We're recording on Tuesday, so it'll be out when you start listening to this live. Go check it out.
I haven't read any of the Boom Buffy stuff, but I like Mirka Andolfo. So I'll check it out.
Yeah, so she's writing rather than drawing, but Saya from Lola XOXO is who's the artist on that. She goes for a different cartoony style to match the Buffyverse rather than her normal style. Definitely a good read, though. Definitely a good
read.
All right, back to you, because we're talking about you. So Jolie, if you know Mirka, tell her come on, because I like her stuff. So Jolie, my colleague from work, gave me a post-it. Check this out with questions.
All right, good.
Yeah, questions. So, so we've done the Disney compare. Is there scope to make a prequel? So I've talked to Jolie. I've told her that there's a new book, Dog Days. Is that right? Yeah. Have I read that right?
Right.
Dog Days coming out. And I said, well, I think that's a sequel more than it's the next kind of like the next chapter. Dum dum dum. And it's kind of the question: is there a prequel?
Yeah, that's what Dog Days is.
There you go. Dog Days is so. Jolie, God damn it, you're right again.
Jolie gets me. Jolie, I feel like being a Disney fan too, she would understand. Like, so they made Lion King, and then they made Lion King 1.5, or they made the Beauty and the Beast Christmas special, which takes place during the movie Beauty and the Beast. Like it's just like they skipped over Christmas and then they went back and told a movie about Christmas. That's sort of what this is. And we always said from the original pitch, like, the plot of this thing moves fast, but there's so many dogs because we just wanted there to be a lot of dogs because that makes the premise scarier, right? Like this guy kills people and takes their dogs. Well, Jesus, if there's 10 dogs, 20 dogs, he's prolific, like this guy's a real problem. So we always said, if people like this and we're successful, we want to go back and tell short stories, anthology style, about each of the dogs in the house.
Perfect.
And so that's what Dog Days is. It's
cool.
It's either 1 or 2 issues, and they're short stories. We're actually working on it right now today. 1 or 2 issues, and it's just short stories about every one of the dogs in the house. Sometimes it's like how the master got them. Sometimes it's just like a fun story or a happy story. Sometimes it's a sad story. It's just like a mix of things, sort of all the emotions that you went through in Stray Dogs.
I'm not sure
condensed into like a short little.
I'm not sure my heart can take anymore. It's like, how man? You killed
this one. The part that I struggle with this one though is that this one is literally only if you read Stray Dogs. But luckily now, and with the trade coming out, like a ton of people will have read Stray Dogs. Yeah. So, it's one of those. It's sort of like remember when Darwin put out that New Frontier one shot?
Right. Yeah.
It's a great little comic, but like if you didn't read New Frontier, it's just like nice drawings.
Yeah, cool. There's an obvious question to ask with the art style being so. I want to say Disney. Or the animation style. Are there plans to have, especially with the recent influx of adult animation that's been kicking around, are there plans to translate this into a more animated form? Because I mean, Stray Dogs, it would work.
Yeah, they're working on it. We optioned it to Paramount before the book even came out. Cool. They've been developing it since about a year ago. They haven't done like a full purchase, so we don't know that's going to be for real.
Yeah.
But like they've optioned it, they paid us. They've been doing drafts of scripts and treatments and all sorts of stuff. So it's produced by a real good friend of mine, Gary Dalberman, who was a screenwriter on like Stephen King's It and It 2, and he wrote all the Annabelles and produced all the Conjuring spinoffs. So he's like a legit horror guy.
My wife will be pleased. She loves all those movies.
Oh, good. And then the screenwriter is this guy Mark Perez, who wrote Game Night with
right.
Jason Bateman,
Yeah.
And Rachel McAdams. And so he's bringing like a lot of the character and humor that movie had, and then he's doing some scares, and then Gary's going to put some extra scares in there too. So hopefully it's going to be a thing. We shall see. They want to do it as the first 2D animated horror movie.
Really? Well, that'll be interesting. I'm going to ask you a question about the back of the book. There we go. Don't know if you can see that. There's a picture of all these stray dogs.
Yeah.
Where, how? Are these dogs you've saved, or what's going on with these?
No, in the first 2 issues, we said, "Hey, send us pictures of your dogs" in the letters column, and so people sent us pictures of their dogs. If you look in the first issue, it's just me and Trish's dog, right. And then the second one, the issue hadn't even come out yet by the time we went to print, so it's just like 6 dogs, people that worked on the book, or like my sister's dog,
Uh-huh.
But then by issue 3, we had this Gmail address you can see right there set up, and people just sent pictures of their dogs, hundreds and hundreds of them. Again, we were not expecting to have this many people read it, let alone correspond with us. But I think it's sort of a little bit of like people love their dogs, and it's a little bit of a vanity thing, like you put a picture of my dog in a comic book, that's cool. But I think also just people really like the book and they want to be in there. Oh, is this for me?
No, this is my dog. There you go. This is my dog. Yeah, this is Bailey.
Johnny, did they not have letters columns in the review copies? Did you not know about this?
Do you know what? If I'm honest, to be honest, I am way too busy reviewing books. It's hard writing 600 words about a comic book. Like six or 7 times a week.
We appreciate reading just the comic part anyway.
Yeah, so that's Bailey.
StrayDogsComic@gmail.com. Send us that picture, and we'll get her in dog days.
Yeah, excellent. Cool. That sounds like a plan. Okay. So animation potentially. How's that work? Because I see a lot of animated movies based on already existing material. The Batman Long Halloween cartoon, for example, which has just come out. I'm always confused why there's a screenwriter when you've got like the book. Surely the graphics, that's like you play by play. It's like, dude, this is the story. There you go. What's it need a screenwriter for?
Yeah, well, I feel like they're like it's a lot of it's translating, but then a lot of it also like on this one, I know that they want to be pretty faithful, but there's also places where you can extend stuff or just make things a little bit bigger. I probably shouldn't say I haven't read drafts because I've been so. I don't want to be influenced by anything while I'm still writing Stray Dogs and I'm still finishing up, the dog stuff.
That's a fair shout. I see that a lot on Twitter. People, writers saying, "Please don't send unsolicited scripts." It impacts. Once it's in my head, how do I prove that I came up with it and you didn't, and then stuff like that. So
this one I know it would be actually better. That guy's a legit great writer, so I'm just like, I don't want to read this guy doing better Stray Dogs than me while I'm still working.
I wouldn't. I'd say I don't buy that. I'm really don't. I think
you're right.
I think the inception element is the key part. Fair enough, you might have to put extra bits in for translation to pad a story out. I mean, I remember back in the day, the Thunderbirds puppet show used to be 30 minutes, and they had to put extra scenes in to pad it out to make it. So. You have once you've got the issue, the story works for the immediate medium it was aimed for. So tip top.
Yeah,
I mean, cool.
I feel like you could read it probably in about an hour, and I think a movie you want it to be about an hour and a half. So there's room to, room to put some stuff in there.
Yeah,
extend stuff a little bit. I trust them, and also it's sort of having a screenwriter gives me the plausible deniability that if something goes wrong and it's not great, you just go
sign the book. Sign the book, man. No, it's not in the book. Didn't happen.
Exactly.
So this book, Stray Dogs, it seems super digital in lots of ways. So when I looked at the credit pages, I just want to give shout out to everyone involved, if that's all right. You've already mentioned Trish Forstner as the artist. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, great. Absolutely. I love the expressions on the dogs' faces. You can see the emotions that they're going through. So that was really good. Brad Simpson's colorist.
Yeah.
Don't
Super
take
good.
that the wrong way. Super cool. Super good. Flashback scene's great. The horror scene. I love the transitions between like the regular part of the house versus the place you're not supposed to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does very good mood. I'm working with him on everything I do. So I'm keeping him around.
So explain, if possible, what a flatter does, please. And this is Lauren Perry.
Yeah, this is an easy one. So most colorists just have their own flatter.
Okay.
But Lauren used to be my roommate, and she flats all. When I draw My Little Pony covers, when I do interior, whatever, she does all my flats. When I color myself, it's basically like you go in like a coloring book and you fill in all the lines with colors, but they don't have to be the right colors. You're just basically breaking them up so that when the colorist comes in, all they have to do is just click on it and it'll be selected, and then they can just go and like paint in all the right colors.
Okay.
Rather than a colorist just gets a blank page and they have to go like fill in shapes and do all this stuff, they can just do the skilled labor. They can jump in and just do the actual working of it, and sort of. Not that Lauren is unskilled. It's a
kind of when you said skilled, I was like, "Ooh, you're gonna get a kicking for that."
Yeah, but it's just for her. It's like busy work. You know, she has a regular job, and then on her off time, she sits around and just colors in boxes, and she'll complain at me when I don't close off lines or when something's particularly messy. She'll just be like, "Why did you do this? I don't want to do this anymore." But she's done my whole career. She's flatted all my stuff, and so when I started working with Brad, I was like, I'm going to already have these flatted. And then I get a little discount on the pages because he doesn't have to pay a flatter.
Well, yeah. Winner, chicken dinner. Lauren Herder, logo and design.
Yeah.
I took a punt on this. Did Lauren Herder provide the letters for the book?
No, I lettered everything.
There you go. So, wrong again.
I just didn't take a credit because I don't like when it says like co-creator, writer, letterer, thumbnail art, like all this stuff. If it's part of just like the production of the book, I don't want to get lettering work, so I don't need that.
Yeah, you don't want to say that you stapled the thing together, right?
Yeah.
Did everything but put the staples in. All right then. So interesting choice. You talk about not boxing lines in. The word bubbles aren't boxed. Is that to sort of like imply that the dogs have this hidden language that we're not supposed to know about?
No, it was more
just a design choice.
It was more of a design choice. It was just sort of in keeping with the animated style. Like I feel like the traditional balloons, that's comic book language, right? Like you see the black line around them and the pointy tail, and you go like, I'm reading a comic book. And I feel like for this one, where we're trying to evoke a specific. It's weird to describe it because I definitely wanted it to be a comic book, but I wanted people to get that feel like they were watching like a Don Bluth movie or a Disney movie, and so I was trying to do certain things like the way Brad did the colors was something we talked about real specifically, and the way we did the lettering too was specifically just so that you don't immediately go like, "Oh, I'm reading a comic," even though obviously you're reading a comic.
No, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, just a little thing, and they do that a lot in European comics, and I like the way it looks.
They do a lot.
So,
yeah,
but they used for a little while they were doing that thing where it would be like low opacity word balloons. You could sort of like see the art behind. I do not like that, but
that's just too much, isn't it? Just too much. Yeah. It detracts the eye. It distracts and everything. It kind of
and it reads very digital.
Yeah, I mean. For all our sins, we are Western comic book readers, and we read a certain way or expect a certain thing. And I think I will say that I don't think letterers get enough credit, because I think what I read recently, what's Infinite Frontier #1 from DC. Letterers not credited on the credit page, not credited on the DC.
Really?
Yeah, not credited on DC's own website. I had to go thumbing through lots of different websites to find out who the letterer was. It was Tom Napolitano. So like he's one of DC's guys.
Yeah.
He's doing a lot of DC work. It's not like it's somebody who's kind of just kind of breaking in. It's someone, same with Doomsday Clock. At times, Doomsday Clock, the colorist and the letterer weren't credited. So you're taking, from a review point of view, you're taking a punt. And I want to say, letters are great by such and such, so.
Yeah. No, that's the reason there's no letterer credit. It's just because it's secretly me. And the reason I don't use a letterer is because I'm like a control freak. And so I'm changing stuff and tweaking stuff. I'm at the same time a control freak and very guilty. So like if I was asking somebody to make changes up until the last minute, I would be just a total basket case. So this way I can just do this work myself and just have it under control. And then if I decide like the minute before it goes to print, like, oh, they should say before they start talking, then I can do that. Because if I had to email somebody with something so stupid as that, it would just be like, who cares? It could never possibly matter. But it matters to me. And so,
yeah, it's your project. It's your thing. I've said this before. I've asked this question before loads of times, actually. So if it was, do writers tend to see themselves as de facto editors, especially if it's your creation?
Well, yeah, I mean, on creator-owned stuff, definitely, like, at least in the stuff that I've done, it's sort of like I'll pick it up and have to carry it to the, because nobody's asking me to come up with a story and bring it to them.
Yeah.
Like I'll come up with a thing and then I'll find my collaborators and we'll work on it together. But I've been very lucky that I've had very dedicated collaborators. But you still have to do a little bit of like, I'm the one who keeps all the files and does the uploading and deals with, art comes to me and then I send it to the flatter, then I send it to the colors, then I send it to, so definitely like editorial type work.
Maybe you should put that in your, so
yeah.
Co-creator, writer, put the staples in. You're like the Jim Jensen of comic books.
You didn't mention Tony Rodriguez on layouts too.
Tony Rodriguez's layouts. So how's that work when you've got layouts as well as an artist?
So it works out really good for us in this case specifically, just because Tone knows storytelling and he knows how to draw stuff in like perspective and just like all the fundamentals of how to draw a comic page. Tone has down pat. And Trish is a newer artist. Like Stray Dogs #1 is the first comic she drew.
Really? No way.
Yeah, the first one to come out was a My Little Pony, but she actually did that after we'd already been working on Stray Dogs. Wow. So with having a layout artist, we were sort of able to just give Trish like a blueprint that was just like, here's what this should look like. You draw the dogs and have them be perfect and sort of put all your flourishes and do like storytelling stuff like within the characters. But as far as like the structure of the thing, you don't have to worry about that. And with her like being new and also basically having, this is like a part-time job for her because she's a full-time, she has a real job still. So she could just sort of like log on and draw her part. I mean, she's still, put everything into it and, hardly slept for 2 years. But, imagine if she would have had to also like, draw that house 30 times or draw that same sunroom 30 times.
So that's what I need for my Spider-Man pictures. I need someone to do my layouts.
Yeah, exactly. You could do the backgrounds for sure.
Get rid of the square buildings.
It sort of ended up becoming, at first Tone would draw like the full things with the dogs in it and everything. And then as the job went on, we saw how good Trish was at the dogs. And it was just like, we don't have to do that. Just give her the shape of it and put a little squiggle where the dog goes. And then she can take it from there. So, and then since then she's laid out her own stuff for other jobs. And she sort of has internalized that, that knowledge and can sort of move on.
She's acquired the skills. So the training wheels are now off. There you go.
Yeah.
Go create. What was it like working with with Image Comics? Because I mean, there's lots of indie books, indie publishers out there. You've got like Image, you've got Scout, you've got Ahoy, you've got Vault. All of those people. Aftershocks. They do a lot of kind of like twisty turny suspense.
Yeah, they've got that Animosity. They've done animal books too.
So I mean, how was working? How did you get with Image, and what was it like working with someone who has quite a diverse portfolio themselves?
Yeah. So Kyle Higgins is a buddy of mine, and I had told him about the idea of Stray Dogs probably like a year before we started actually drawing it and stuff. I ran into it at a convention. I was like, oh, this is the next thing I'm working on. And he loved it right away. Like, he just was so psyched about it and so supportive. And he was like, when this comes out, can I take it to Image? Because he's like, is friends with those guys. And he's like, you know, so sort of like a privileged situation where somebody likes my stuff and they want to take it to somebody who likes their stuff. That sort of, it's who you know type shit.
Yeah.
Where, like, when you hear that, it seems like diminishing. Like, well, I mean, I also made a really good thing, and then it was who I knew. You know, like, it's not like I just showed up with nonsense. It was just like, my dumb shit.
Knock on the door. Read this.
But so when we got the pitch put together, it was around Comic-Con, and Kyle was down there before I was. And he was out at drinks or something with Eric Stevenson, and he was just, he likes to tell this story where he was showing him something on his phone from a book he was working on, and we opened up Dropbox, and my pitch was still open, and Stevenson was like, well, what's that? And he was like, oh, this is this thing. It's about a dog who realizes that she's a trophy from a serial killer, and she's in this house with all these other dogs. And Stevenson, before he could finish, goes, and all the other dogs are trophies from that serial killer too? And he was like, yes. And then Stevenson was just like, all right, sold. We'll publish that for sure. So then I just got a call like, hey, Image is going to make your book. Like,
okay.
I spent forever like crafting a pitch document and a cover letter and all this stuff. And I was like reading other people's pitches and texting back and forth with people. Should I say Eric or Mr. Stevenson? What do you think? And then it didn't end up really mattering. But so that's how we ended up with them. And then working with them is really great. Like, they think of a lot of stuff that we wouldn't think of as far as like marketing and getting the book out there.
I mean, they've been doing it for a while now.
Yeah, they know what they're doing. But the great thing, like, one of the best things about publishing with them is the benefit of the doubt that I think we got just from being an Image comic. But because our book is so bizarre in concept, like, it's a Disney horror, and if you said that and it was from a publisher that you didn't trust implicitly, you just be like, nobody's going to really pay attention to it. But since it's an Image #1, there's enough people that will just give it a shot because they're like, well, they're not going to put out something that's pure garbage, like, something's got to be going on here. Generally, they're not going to put out something that's pure garbage.
I was just going back through the history of Image books. I'm like,
in the last
I'm joking. I'm winding you up. It's fine. I mean, hey, you're absolutely right. Image. You're talking Walking Dead. You're talking Sunstone from Stephen Seach. All that stuff. They are probably the thing they don't do very well. Probably, if you're going to say anything, is superheroes, which is ironic considering where they came from. But hey ho,
whether they did them super well back then. I mean, Savage Dragons had its sure.
Spawn's back, isn't it? With Spawn Universe. So,
I don't know. I didn't read it yet. I assume it's wonderful.
I haven't read it either. I'm going to say this, even though I've interviewed Todd McFarlane, I'm not a big Spawn fan.
I love the art in Spawn. I don't much care about the story of Spawn that much. Although the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I find parts of it interesting. Like, oh, that's interesting stories and stuff. But yeah,
it depends because obviously McFarlane was on it for ages, and then Capullo came on it. So, and then
I like that stuff. I like the Tony Daniels stuff. I like that guy John
Tony
Cleary
Daniels.
that he had for a little while.
I think
from the Bruce Crew.
I think Tony Daniels gets a bit of a rough ride, to be honest. I really like his work.
Yeah, I think him being on those Morrison books too, when people were used to like a certain kind of thing, and then he came in like an Image Comics artist, he was a real fishy, and people were looking for a more, Grant Morrison artist. Yeah,
well, I kind of get the vibe that people view him as a kind of also around Jim Lee, and the two aren't exactly that. They're not. I can see the similarities. Like, people when they say that, but it's like there's plenty of differences as well if you go.
Yeah, no, for sure. And especially back in those Spawn days, like, he was a lot cartoonier. He had a lot more McFarlane and like cartoon influence in his stuff, and he's definitely gotten a lot tighter since then. But I like both of them.
It's interesting because when you talk about artists that jump on books, whether it be, back in the day with John Romita Jr., Senior taking over, Dick Cole and stuff like that, it seems that traditionally the idea when a new artist comes in, they've got to kind of look like the old artist for a while before sort of like getting us along to where they want us to be in their natural style. So it's interesting when that happens. All right.
Yeah, I don't feel like they do that much nowadays.
No,
you see it happen sometimes.
But just kind of a thing. So unless you're reading Zenoscope, I can't tell a Zenoscope artist from another Zenoscope artist.
Johnny, I don't know.
Hey, it's my pain. It's my pain for reviewing comic books. That's what that is. All right. So when is Dog Days out?
Hopefully around the end of the year. Like I say, we're drawing it right now. Tony Rodriguez is in my living room doing layouts as we speak. He flew out here to just sort of, we're going to do like an old school jam session and just sit around and knock out comics for a couple of weeks.
Cool.
And then it's just a matter of drawing a red color. So we're aiming for around the end of the year, but we're still working out all the details.
And the Stray Dogs trade, when's that due?
That's September. September 15th or 21st, somewhere around there.
Cool. Lots of additional art pages and stuff in there to...
maybe. We're still figuring that out too.
All right, okay.
But then there's also the Free Comic Book Day in August this year.
Cool.
And we've got a Free Comic Book Day issue that's issue 1, but with 10 new pages. And it's the story of the first dog to come to the master's house. So a little bit of history there. And it'll sort of give you like a taste of what Dog Days is going to be too, because it's like that length of stories, little short story stuff.
All right, excellent. I look forward to seeing that come Free Comic Book Day. All right. Tony Fleece, thank you so much for spending some time with me to talk about what I think has been one of the biggest and best stories this year. As I said, if I get a vote for mini-series of the year, Stray Dogs is getting my vote every time. I never shut up talking about how good this book is. So, thank you so much for producing a book that genuinely has made me cry for good reasons and bad reasons. It's made me laugh out loud and put a smile on my face. So, what? Thanks, man. If that's your overall aim of doing comics, color yourself success. Well done.
I think it is. And we love doing it, and we love hearing that it worked on people. So we really appreciate it. We appreciate this and all the reviews and everything. Like, you've just been so kind, and we appreciate the support and spreading the word.
Hey, I'm only kind when I like the book. Don't.
Good.
I'm like, Mr. McGee, don't give me a bad comic book. You won't like me when I get a bad comic book.
Sometimes I'll see a reviewer. I'm just like, oh, they gave us 10, and then I look and I'm like, oh, everybody else 10 too. What's this? So
I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy.
I appreciate those guys too.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
All right. So that's it for this episode of Outside the Panels. Don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite pods, including the Definitive Crusade, where you get to talk about everything DC, the No Prize Podcast, which is the Marvel version, and of course the Flip Side Focus, where you get all your up-to-date indie and Kickstarter tips and hints. All right, Tony, thanks again. Really appreciate it. And all that's left for me to say is this is Johnny the Machine Hughes saying adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.